This is Jilliana Ranicar-Breese. I'm in Cartagena, and I've just moved to private accommodation, and amazingly I've just had the pleasure of meeting the conductor Bernard Rubenstein, who lives in Santa Fe, and I've actually been to Santa Fe in the 1970s, but he's beaten me. He said he's been there since the 1960s.
That was my first orchestra, actually.
Yes?
Well, my second orchestra.
Yes? Where was your first orchestra?
Well, I had just finished graduate school. I had just left Yale University, and one of my instruments was the oboe. Mm-hmm. And a very fine conductor was invited by George Zell to be an assistant with the Cleveland Orchestra. Mm-hmm. And so the Orchestra of Providence, Rhode Island, needed an assistant conductor as well as a principal oboist. And someone said, oh, you need to call Bernard. He's a good conductor, and he also plays the oboe very beautifully. So I was invited to do that, and so that was my first orchestra right out of graduate school.
Wonderful. How old were you then?
I must have been, 20,
mm-hmm.
something like that, 16, 20.
Yeah.
21.
Which was your favorite? I mean, you're now retired. Is that correct?
More or less. I mean, I'm 80 years old.
Yes, you're invited occasionally.
And I'm invited. Yes,
Yes. Where was your favorite, or which was your favorite orchestra?
Well, I was associate conductor of the Cincinnati Symphony for quite a few years,
right.
And it was a wonderful orchestra to work with. So I loved Cincinnati. And I had an orchestra in Oklahoma, which was very wonderful, called the Tulsa Philharmonic.
Okay.
But the oil prices, the price of oil kept going up and down, and I never thought as a conductor I would read the paper every morning to find out what the price of a barrel of oil was. Because if it went up, I knew we would be doing well and hiring good musicians, but if it went down, the musicians would not get their raises. And so that was one of the financial burdens that conductors sometimes have to face, which is even more today with raising money and being part of that. So it's not the fun part of being a musician.
Yeah, but
money.
You are connected with Cuba, aren't you?
Yes, I've been going to Cuba for over 10 years conducting, and I love Cuba. I love the musicians.
Me too.
And I've worked with the National Symphony there. And also in Havana, there's a wonderful women's orchestra.
Good heavens.
Who is headed by a wonderful woman conductor called Zenaide Romeo. And she has a camerata, a small chamber orchestra with women musicians, young women.
Okay.
And she's been the only conductor there, but she's known my work, and I'm the first male and the first guest conductor ever to work with this camerata Romeo. And it's a wonderful group. And so when I go to...
Do they travel around Cuba, or they just...
They travel around Cuba, and they also travel internationally. They've gone other cities. They've been to California, and they've been to Europe.
So they're ambassadors for classical music,
yes.
Like the Buena Vista Social Club was the ambassador for Cuban music.
Yes, but it's very difficult for the Cuban musicians and the groups to...
I know.
They had a big tour last year, but for some reason the American government now it has hardened its policy, and there were problems getting visas. So their tour was canceled. They were going to play in Washington and New York and Chicago, but
so it was cancelled for political reasons.
Yes.
Well,
visa political reasons. So it's unfortunate. I was so optimistic with Obama, with the new opening of relations with Cuba, and now it's very sad that things are cut off.
I know. Well, we won't go into politics.
We won't go into politics, no.
Let's keep to music.
Let's keep to music.
Tell me, who is your favorite composer? I mean, the genre.
Well, most of my training was in new music. When I was a student, I was at Yale, for example. Elliott Carter, who's a wonderful composer, had many fine students, and so people would ask me, Bernie, I have this new piece, would you conduct it? And so I started really doing most of my work with new music.
So very
contemporary,
modern.
Contemporary things.
Right.
And then I studied in Germany for many years and worked in Berlin and also in Cologne. And there was a school for new music in Cologne run by Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, but also with the wonderful German conductor, the Viennese conductor, Michael Gielen. And I work with Gielen with contemporary music, which is one of his specialties. And then I also studied with Pierre Boulez, who's a wonderful teacher and a great conductor.
In Paris?
No, I worked with him in Basel, Switzerland.
Oh. He's French, though, isn't he?
He's French, but he had several master classes in Switzerland.
Okay.
So I worked on several occasions with Pierre, and he was a wonderful teacher for analyzing music and analyzing scores.
Have you written any music yourself?
I've written some, but I wouldn't call myself a composer, no.
Okay. Has your music been performed?
No.
Okay.
Well, in small occasions, but not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
I'm not a composer.
Yeah. Do you give salons back in Santa Fe? You know, like they did in Paris in the old days?
No, not really. Not really. No, every once in a while I'm invited to give a lecture to introduce a concert or introduce artists, but no, it's just very informal.
Okay.
But after Providence, Rhode Island, the Santa Fe Symphony was my first music directorship, where I was in charge of the orchestra. So that's where I went to Santa Fe in the 60s.
And Santa Fe has an orchestra?
Yes, they have actually several orchestras. They have a couple of good chamber orchestras and a symphony, and it's a wonderful culture now. And of course, it has the Santa Fe Opera, which is a great organization.
Well, I remember Santa Fe.
Yes.
It was, in the 70s. I was there sort of 1975, I think it was.
Yes, no, the opera was going strong then, yes.
Yeah.
No, and also art. I have a shirt, there's a wonderful folk art festival. Volunteer, I sort of help translate for the Cuban artists who go there. Sometimes they're painters and artisanos.
So your
from
Spanish
Cuba.
obviously is very good.
Well, it's enough to help, yes. I continue to study Spanish. It's a beautiful language.
Right.
I love it. And
Absolutely.
that's why I love to travel in Spanish-speaking countries.
Yes.
And
Latin America,
Latin
you mean,
America
yes.
and Spain. And I've conducted in Costa Rica and Mexico and Spain.
Did you come from a musical background? Were your parents musicians?
My mother was a piano teacher.
Right.
And my grandmother was also very musical, and I have a...
Were they from Russia? Or?
Yes, originally from... My father's side was from Russia.
Right.
And my mother's side from Eastern Europe, Poland.
Yes.
All the mixture. It used to be Austro-Hungary.
Yes.
My grandfather, I have his...
The American Dream via Ellis Island?
Yes, I have his certificate from in the steerage class, and his certificate from King
immigration.
Prince King Rudolph giving him permission to leave the Austro-Hungary. It was Austro-Hungary at that time.
Austro-Hungary. Oh.
And I actually have a distant uncle who tried to get in the United States, but he had some medical eye condition. He was not allowed, and he wound up in Argentina as a gaucho.
So wonderful. Did you ever meet him?
No, I never met him, but I went to Argentina and tried to find where he lived, but without success. But
oh, how interesting.
So
yes.
We're all immigrant families.
Yes. Well, that's America, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's been absolutely delightful meeting you.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and a chance meeting in Cartagena.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I wish you bon voyage.
Thank you. Gracias.
Bye-bye.